Secret of the Mimic has given us a lot to think about in terms of the FNAF lore, giving us a more concrete starting point for the story and idea of what was happening pre-Fazbear Entertainment, and possibly even pre-Fredbear's Family Diner. Not only does Secret of the Mimic add context to the events we see later in the games, it also gives us some background on some characters that we've seen before. Through the email correspondence, we get more of William Afton, and even more evidence of his predatory business practices, and how he may have played a role in the closure of Edwin's company. We also get some more backstory on other characters mentioned later in the timeline, like Stan from Stan's Discount Tech, Ralph the Phone Guy, and of course Henry. With evidence in the game, I think it's pretty safe to say that our dear Henry was far from innocent when it comes to Edwin losing his company to Fazbear Entertainment, just through the process of elimination. I'd like to credit Fazbear Entertainment's video on the matter. I haven't personally been able to play Secret of the Mimic yet, so their video really helped me. I'll link the video down in the description so you can give it a watch yourself. It's a very good video, very comprehensive, so definitely check it out. A lot of the lore that we get in Secret of the Mimic is found in mailboxes throughout the facility, and with some environmental evidence, it's pretty easy to see how the recipient of this email from William Afton could have been Henry. I mean, it totally is. It's too perfect. But was it really his fault that Edwin lost the company? Find out today on the Cherry Soda broadcast. Hello everyone, it's Soda. Notice anything different? Yep, I made a new sprite. And I definitely did not have 6 fingers in my last video. This week's video might be a little short, but I just wanted to get something out for you guys talking about Henry and Secret of the Mimic. After reading some of the mail logs, I couldn't help but notice a few things that I wanted to share with you guys. And with that, let's talk about Secret of the Mimic. In his own way, Edwin serves as a narrator for some parts of Secret of the Mimic, especially in the tapes that we hear throughout the game. But I think one important thing we need to remember is that he's a very unreliable narrator, and not everything that we hear him say is 100% accurate. These 2 lines come to mind for me.
Attention traders, admin wing permissions have been revoked. And no, you can't clear out your desks. You stole my work. Now your jackets, purses, and coffee mugs, and anything else belongs to me. Maybe I'll go find someone to sell your stuff to. How does that feel?
Test. Journal entry. Too bad the new power test was a failure. Due to a minor detonation, there is damage to my office interior, as well as a small fire. Note to self, portable cleaner that gets rid of smoke damage. Or better yet, a Cleanovac attachment.
One thing that I've seen a lot recently online is some people demonizing Henry and the other employees for betraying Edwin. I mean, even Edwin himself calls them traitors in his audio logs. But honestly, the situation is a lot more messed up when you really look at it, and you really start to see that there are multiple victims and perpetrators. His name is Edwin, he made the Mimic, but he could not keep his company together. Although we don't know much about Mr. Murray and how he ran his company, I think when Edwin mentions that his father told him not to trust them, probably implies that he was a much better businessman than his son was, and probably a lot less reckless. You guys are not gonna like this when I say this, but Edwin is kind of a bad person. I mean, just listen to this line about the Springlock suits.
Test. Journal entry. I got the change order from Hen last night. None of this makes sense. I'm almost done. Why change it now? It would be so much easier to keep using the Springlocks. Just hire some teens to wear the suits like we always do.
And the fact that Fiona had to talk to him about it through Mrs. Helpful really is telling.
Ed, I hate talking to you through this stupid bear, but it's hard to reach you otherwise. I'm worried about the new suit design. One of my costumers, Vic, nearly lost his hand today. All he did was spill a can of pop and the thing snapped shut like a bear trap. You're busy, but you can't rush these things.
It really doesn't seem like he cares much for the health and safety of his employees, so this change would have definitely been jarring for them when he took over, especially if Mr. Murray had been treating them well for decades. This mistreatment could definitely cause something like the P of 1975. This was an event where a Mr. Marco Salmon destroyed some equipment. Let's be mature for a second. This is a very serious thing to do. I mean, you could get arrested for this. So Mr. Salmon probably was very angry with the company. Another employee in the computer logs mentions that his weekend vacation request was refused. It's very much implied that the staff here were extremely overworked, and Edwin, being so preoccupied with his projects, was too busy to even notice. I mean, he didn't even have time for David, so how would he deal with his employees as well? They weren't his priority. He needed to work on something better than the cleanovac. So maybe his employees found themselves staying later and later every night. I mean, Ralph himself even jokes about sleeping there, but it's really not that difficult to imagine. I mean, if they can't even take weekend vacation, I doubt they have the time to come home and eat dinner with their families. Anyone who's at school right now or working can probably understand burnout and frustration from having too much work to do, especially when it comes to working in the creative field. And that's not even mentioning the Springlock suits and the other creepy stuff that's been happening at MCM. I mean, if it was me, I'd get the hell out too. Now Soda, you might say, I thought this was a Henry video. When are you gonna start talking about him? Well, I'm glad you asked. First, let's revisit the audio log about the change order from Edwin. I think it's pretty clear to say that Henry probably opposed the Springlock suit. Especially if he worked at MCM, he might have had some first-hand experience with them. I mean, it's pretty well known that Henry himself has worn them in the past. And the employees at MCM seem to be pretty tight, so I bet he would have heard about anything dangerous that would have happened, or even seen it. I mean, Henry has always been the most safety-conscious person in the FNAF universe, which is really saying something, and I say that just because of the invention of the security puppet to keep his daughter safe. One idea that they mentioned in the Fazbear Entertainment video that I really liked was that Henry served as a sort of middleman for MCM and Fazbear Entertainment when discussing the Fazbear project. I really like this because not only does it put him really close with William Afton, possibly, it also gives him a unique perspective, as he's able to work with his own company and Fazbear Entertainment. If the Costume Manor was the first place to start selling the Springlock suit, maybe the lack of them could have drawn Henry to Fazbear Entertainment. I would also not be surprised at all if he was also subjected to the long working hours that the rest of the employees were. I think it's interesting if we look at the time period in which this was happening, which was most likely in the mid-70s. It's very likely that Henry was married at this point, and depending on how old his kids are, he either had very young babies or was getting ready to have them. One thing that I really don't see people focus on that much is the more human aspects of the FNAF lore. I know you guys really liked it when I talked about it in the divorce video. I'll link it down below so you guys can go watch it. But in the story, there's a lot of very interesting implications. And if Henry had 2 young children, or even a pregnant wife, his priorities would really have to be taken into account. I'm not a parent myself, but I know that when you have a kid, it's really expensive. Not just with money, but time. And if Henry was getting his pay docked, and didn't know if he was still going to be employed by the end of the year, and on top of that didn't get to spend time with his family as much as he should, it was only natural that he'd probably start looking for new jobs, which would be very difficult for a man like Henry. You see, his expertise is very specific. I mean, how many people do you know in person that build animatronics? Fazbear Entertainment would feel like a godsend, especially if he was promised that he'd be able to manage one of the locations. One thing stuck out to me in Edwin's voice lines, the fact that he mentioned Springlocks, a diner, and Henry in the same statement. Now we know that all these things are connected. Springlocks are used at the Fredbear's location. It's implied that Henry might have owned Fredbear's at some point, or at the very least managed it, and we know that they're talking about Fredbear's because of the word diner. Now remember, this is a very significant word. If they didn't mean Fredbear's Diner, they could have just used a word like restaurant or establishment. Or hey, even pizza place. But Edwin specifically mentions a diner, and because of the Fredbear's pizza boxes around the office, we know that it probably existed at some point before the diner was built. Maybe it was a smaller company, and the reason why they needed the Springlock suits was because they were making a larger location with a bigger budget. If this was the case, I think it would also make William Afton's email to Henry a lot more ironic, especially since he'd end up managing the restaurant that he had been working on with Edwin at his previous company. And if this was the intention, then I really love this because it kind of brings everything full circle. I think another thing worth noting is it's pretty much heavily implied that Edwin and Henry were close in some regard. I mean, Edwin refers to him strictly as Hen. In the games, we don't get a lot of characterization for Henry, or really any of the other characters, but one of his biggest personality traits in the books was that he was extremely shy. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if William was his only friend, which is kind of sad. So I could imagine how Edwin's change in the company could definitely affect Henry more than anyone else. I would also assume that they're very close in age, and with what we know about their careers and their fields of study, they could have even possibly gone to school together, or worked very closely with each other for a very long time. I mean, if Henry was an admin, this would make even more sense. Maybe he got a higher up position because he was close with the Murrays. And this closeness would probably make Edwin's mistreatment of him even more offensive. I mean, think about it. Imagine that you've worked at this company where you get to do what you love all the time, designing costumes, building robots, pursuing art, and all the wonderful things that we know Henry likes to do. And even better, you get to work with your friends, and you're even able to have a higher up position. I'd imagine that Henry was probably making good money at this point. Definitely Fortunately enough to support his wife and his children. Hey, maybe he was even comfortable enough to start thinking about having another child. But before he could get too comfortable, everything goes south. You see, Edwin wants to expand his company. His failed inventions drive him crazy, and there's real promise when it comes to the animatronic business, especially when it comes to Fazbear Entertainment. On top of that, he has his own more, personal projects, and has no time to think about employee welfare and safety. I mean, what's wrong with a few people getting spring locked? Do your employees really need to take the weekends off? It would all be worth it in the end. They just needed to be more patient. And to make it worse, the whole situation at Fall Fest was extremely sketchy. Would it really be completely out of the picture for Edwin to fake Fiona's death for insurance money? The bar really felt like it was in hell. So I would imagine that when Henry got that email from a specific WA, he probably felt like he was doing everyone a favor. And everyone knows that absolutely no one can escape William Afton's Riz. I mean, that's my biggest question about FNAF. What is up with this dude? Why is he so afraid of dying? Why is he purple? Why are the police allergic to arresting him? We'll never know. But when I find out, I'll make sure to tell you guys. And with that, we've come to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Next week, I'll have the Halloween special out for you guys, so please keep an eye on that. It's a theory that I've had for a while, and I can't wait to share it with you guys, but kind of a warning, it's gonna be a little bit out there. And hey, go follow me on Instagram if you're interested in seeing my art or anything else that I do. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so to join the party. I make a new video every week on Saturday, and I love talking about FNAF, so if that's something you're interested in, please hit that button. And if you've made it all the way to the end of the video, tell me who your favorite animatronic is in the comments.